If you've been learning to draw, you might have heard of an exercise called master studies. If you're like me, you were probably doing these without knowing what it was when you first started drawing, by just copying drawings from your favorite manga or anime. In this video, we're going to look at a few of the questions that you might have as a beginner, and then important things to think about when you're studying from your favorite artists. If you approach master studies correctly, you can learn so much and gain a way better understanding of how great artists think. Alright, then let's get started. So the first question that we should answer is, what is a master study? A master study is an exercise where we replicate a master's work with the goal of understanding their thought process and their techniques. I think that the term master study is mostly used among painters, but the exercise itself is universal and can be used for any discipline of art, or actually any skill. When people play sports, it's common to watch footage of world-class athletes and then attempt to replicate what they're doing. The whole purpose behind this exercise for learning a skill is to avoid reinventing the wheel. In art, we have literally thousands of years of people who've been developing this skill. The earliest art might even date back to 73,000 years ago. That's 73,000 years of human beings learning how to draw. With all that history, it wouldn't make sense to try and just make it up all by yourself. We can just use the knowledge that was already accumulated by countless artists before us. When we come across a problem in drawing, we can just use the solutions that masters have already come up with. That way, we're not just redoing all the trial and error that's already been done by people before. And all that aside, who doesn't just want to draw like their favorite artist? Doing master studies can be as simple as just sitting down and copying a drawing in front of you. But if we want to get the most out of our studies, there's a little bit more to think about. The first thing we'll think about is the distinction between studying the work and copying the work. Copying a drawing is just replicating the image that you see, but studying a drawing is when we analyze the techniques used by an artist. Instead of replicating the image one for one, we're breaking it down to understand the thought process behind it. Just copying a drawing isn't a bad thing at all though. Trying to match a drawing accurately is really good for improving your observation skills, which is probably one of the most important skills in drawing. Having good observation can give you an intuition for when something feels off in your drawing. Just doing general copying alone though won't really help us with specific weaknesses or problems that we might have. To focus on specific problems, we want to go into the studies with a goal in mind. We can study while thinking about something that we really want to learn from the artist. For the studies I'm doing in this video, I'm only drawing faces because I want to improve at getting the correct proportions of the head. I also really like the stylization choices of the artist that I chose to study, so I'm thinking about that too. Having a goal with your studies is going to help you get a lot more out of each drawing. I know that I personally spent a lot of time drawing from observation, but not thinking a lot, which is better than not drawing at all, but it's definitely not the best use of that time. Whenever we study, it's important that we actually think rather than just aimlessly doodling. Doodling is still a great exercise and it's a lot of fun, but it should be separate from focused study. Since we're studying with a specific focus, it can be super useful to isolate parts of a drawing that we want to learn from. This way, we can avoid overwhelming ourselves. For example, if I only want to focus on the types of shapes an artist uses, I don't have to replicate everything about their work. I could just draw silhouette shapes of the figures in their piece. Even though I don't end up with a beautiful copy of their work which is full of detail, I still learned from it, right? And that's our main goal when we study. In my studies for this video, since I was focusing on the face, I only drew the face, even if the work I was referencing had much more than that. So now that we know that we should be focused on a specific goal when we study, we might come across the problem of not knowing what that goal should be. To be honest, it can really be whatever you want it to be. As a beginner, you probably feel like everything's a weak point, so you want to learn everything, but taking it step by step is way better for avoiding getting overwhelmed. There's so many ways to decide what area you want to focus on. And the only thing that matters in what you choose to study is whether it's useful in the type of art you want to make. For people who are past the beginner level of not really knowing anything, you might have started to notice specific weaknesses in your drawings. Master studies can be a great opportunity to see how people with a lot of experience approach the same problems that you're facing. Another great thing to focus on when doing master studies is the application of fundamentals. You might have already studied the structure of the head and the face, but you're not quite sure how to present it in an appealing way. Through artist studies, you can learn how the masters work with and around the fundamentals to make art that looks great. We might think about whose work is good to study. To put it simply, you should just study an artist that you like. If you see a drawing and you feel, I wish I could draw like that, that's probably a good reason to study that person's work. Whenever you see something that you want to be able to do, just study it. As a beginner, it's pretty common to not have the observation to be able to notice mistakes in other people's work. I think it's common for new artists to study other beginners and not notice that they're picking up bad habits from that person. To avoid this, it might be better to study from more established and acclaimed artists at first, instead of just people that you happen to come across on social media. But that doesn't mean that an artist's popularity is a confirmation that their work is perfect. There's also a bunch of great artists who fly completely under the radar in terms of popularity. That can make it kind of feel like a guessing game, but as you build your observation through experience, you start to get more of a sense for these things. I remember when I first started drawing, I saw a lot of artists who I thought were crazy good, but as I improved my own skills and my observation, I just became able to see the really big mistakes in their work. Another thing to think about is studying a range of artists. You might have one favorite artist who you want to draw exactly like, but just studying and trying to replicate one person can be detrimental. First, I think it can just be really boring to only look at one artist every day. We typically have a range of interests, so it can get exhausting to just look at one person's solutions to problems every day. There's a whole world of artists with different styles and expressions, so it would be a waste to limit yourself to only one person. But for people who don't mind that level of restriction and just really deeply love one artist's work, that's probably not an issue for them. What can be an issue though is becoming a clone of that artist. If you try to draw exactly like somebody, you're gonna fail. Everyone's different, so it's impossible to just be someone else. The most you can do is just be a worse version of them. For that reason, it's much better to develop your own unique style by mixing various influences. Also, different artists just have different strengths. If you want to draw dynamic action poses, studying Yusuke Murata's work makes way more sense than studying Shinichi Sakamoto's work. And it's the reverse if you want to study semi-realism and really detailed hatching. I want to share some resources that I think are really useful for doing artist studies. The first is the website characterdesignreferences.com. This website has a grand portfolio section where we can see collections of a bunch of artists' work. This is great for finding collections of artists that you already like, and also to find new artists who might inspire you. They have collections for older and newer artists, so there's a really great range here. A more obvious source for work is just various social media sites. Again, this can have the downside of anybody's work being shared there, so you might end up studying from somebody and being unaware of the mistakes in their drawings. But it's undeniable that these sites are a really good resource just due to the huge amount of work that you can find. I particularly like going to Pinterest, where there's boards that people have just collected a bunch of artists' work together. Another really great site is ArtStation because it's just a concentrated portfolio of an artist's work. What I think is the best resource is art books. These are collections of what are typically the artist's best work, and not just any random artist is going to be able to invest in releasing a book. So it gives the work a level of merit. And also, I think it's just really cool to collect these. Obviously, they can get pretty expensive, so it's not a must thing. But if you're able to get them, it's a really fun resource to use for master studies. I'd also include comics and manga in this category, and they're especially good just because of the number of drawings there are. There's long-running mangas that will have like thousands of pages of drawings to study from, so you're never short on work to study. Like all of our studies in drawing, we should aim to use the knowledge we gain from master studies to improve our own work. I've been studying how various artists draw faces, so I wanted to use the knowledge and habits that I picked up in my drawing. So for this sketch, I drew a character from a Japanese action RPG game called Bloodborne. After studying how great artists simplify things, I had a much easier time stylizing the head and the face specifically. I hope that after watching this video, you have a better understanding of master studies and can use it to level up your skills. Thanks a lot for watching the video.